George Lucas is going to come out of retirement and play for the Chicago Bulls. Okay, I like that. Star Wars is going to be bought out by the United Nations and rebranded Star Hugs because war is kind of icky. We can do that. Trandoshans smell like applesauce. That's it.
Nick, what the
Trandoshans
hell?
smell.
What the hell are you doing, man? What are you
Dude,
doing?
I'm writing clickbait headlines. Did you know those people make money?
I know they make
I've
too
got to
much
get in
money.
on that.
Yeah, I don't think that's the way we really want to go here at ATG Live.
Trust me,
It's not our thing.
it's not a big deal. And besides, I'm going to need some of that cheddar because mommy needs a new car. This is ATG Live.
Clickbait, really? Is that where we're going now?
There's money.
It's funny. We post the news stories that we do every week in the YouTube channel, so you can catch them. And our headline last week about Andor went because Cassian, that's not his real name, Pete. He's got a real name. Diego Luna said he was going to be done shooting. So I made a headline that literally said, Diego Luna done with Andor. And people got pissed off at me. There's comments in there about that's clickbait. I'm like, no, he's literally
it's really happening. He's done.
He's done. Well, welcome to ATG Live. I am Pete Fletzer. I'm one of your hosts for your Thursday night home for Star Wars news, conversation, analysis, discussion, guests, craziness. And I'm also joined, of course, by my good friend Nick. Nick, how's it going, man?
It's fantastic. Looking forward to our guest tonight, all the things we're going to talk about. Ready for more Star Wars talk. That's what we do.
Yeah, well, you were making the clickbait headlines, but what's some of the real headlines we're looking at this week?
There is some real news this week. We know that we finally have some details about Bad Batch Season 3, which is very exciting. Looking forward to talking about that. Yep. Also, Daisy Ridley is talking more about the Rey movie, and she says, and I'm not being excessive here, she said it's, quote, cool as shit.
I'll take a cool as shit Star Wars movie any day. And also Hasbro dropped some new toys this week. And gatekeepers, unfortunately, seem to be getting some attention in the mainstream media.
It's true. And we have a fantastic guest. We have built in this new year ATG Live around having excellent guests every week. We are continuing that tradition. Our good friend, YouTuber Kyle Katarn is going to join us this evening. We're going to talk about some of these news stories, what it means to be a part of the Star Wars fandom. Lots of good stuff on deck.
I'm really looking forward to him. But before we get to that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. That's what we got to do at the beginning of the show. It's in the streamer's bylaws. I don't know, Nick, if you got your 2024 copy yet. That just hit me this week. But make sure that if this is your first time with us, hit that subscribe button and hit the little bell. I don't know if it's a bell, but it says subscribe, and hit the reminder. Hit that reminder because now we are live on Thursday nights every week. Thursday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. I don't know what time it is in the UK. It's a little earlier, a little later for them, but earlier for us. Anyway, hit that bell and keep up with us on YouTube.
That's right. And not only YouTube, but we live in a world of social media, and that is the place to still track us down. We are still on Twitter. We will always call it Twitter. That's also in our podcast bylaws. You can find us on Twitter at ATGcast. You can find us on all your other social medias, maybe not quite as frequently, but we're there at the SSW Network. Really, the easiest thing you can do is go to theSSWnetwork.com. It's the one-stop shop for social media, links to the podcast and videos, merchandise, all the cool stuff we have going on. We throw it on there.
Excellent. Yes, and if you're going to buy some of our merchandise, make sure to use the code SHILL15. That's no joke. If you use SHILL15, you're going to get 15% off your entire order. Plus, while you're at the website, think about joining our Patreon program. For as little as $3 a month, you will be able to be a part of our live virtual audience when we record interviews for Around the Galaxy and Podcast of the Wills. This past week, we had a bunch of people hanging out with us when we talked to Ethan Sachs, which was great. $3 a month gets you that, plus free swag and some other kind of cool stuff. A better discount than that 15%. So
always a good time, especially when you hang out. And speaking of hanging out, we have added in this new year Another way to connect with us, we have our voicemail line. Over the last couple of weeks, at the end of the show, when we get to our intercepted transmission segment, we've been playing some of your voicemails. This week is no exception. We've got some voicemails on deck. Lloyd's going to bring this to us a little bit later. But in case you need it, the number's right there on your screen, 504-321-1501. You can call that number anytime during the week. You're just randomly thinking about Star Wars. You wake up in the middle of the night, 3 a.m, a Star Wars thought hits you that you can't let it escape. Call that number, leave it for us. It's not going to wake either one of us up, but you can leave us a message. And if it's really awesome, we'll play it next week or when shows are on or while we're talking tonight. And you notice that I say something that means I should turn in my fan card, call that number, call me on it. I'll be glad to be called out next week on the show.
Call him out, call me out, call all of us out. We have so much going on tonight. We're so excited that you're with us, and we're so excited that Kyle Katarn will be with us a little bit later tonight. But before we get to that, we're going to hit our first break, and we are going to come right back with the Star Wars news of the week. We'll be right back with more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night home for Star Wars talk, conversation, analysis, BS, talking, hanging out. Look, there's a lot of Star Wars going on, and it's a lot to keep up with, and we're glad that you're hanging out with us tonight. We see you in the chat. We're watching. Leave your comments during the show, and we're going to bring them up at the end of the night to talk about them. But I think there's a lot going on, and you're probably going to have a lot to say when we hit the news. Lloyd, let's hit that bumper. Well, our first news story of the week is that the Bad Batch has returned. On Monday, Lucasfilm dropped the trailer for the brand new season 3, which is the final season of Bad Batch. 15 episodes of the season are going to begin coming up in just a couple weeks, February 21st, with a 3-episode premiere. Season 3 will air the finale on May 1st, with an episode entitled The Cavalry Has Arrived. In addition to the 3-episode premiere, there will also be a double episode drop at about the halfway point of the season, with the 7th and 8th installment called Infiltration and Extraction, respectively. I don't know. Maybe it's respectful. We don't know. We haven't seen the season yet. And they will be shown back to back. The trailer revealed not only Emperor Palpatine with some of those cool red guards that those of us who are Gen X remember seeing in the first photos of Return of the Jedi, but the surprise return of Clone Wars favorite Asajj Ventress. Nick, what was your response to seeing the new trailer?
Well, much to the disappointment of so many people I love in social media, the number one thing I freaked out about was not Asajj Ventress. Less familiar. She's awesome. Great character. I know so many people love her, and I will not dump on that character at all. It's just not one of the things that ticks my radar. So that's fine. But what I will say is I'm excited for the show to be back overall. I've said many times, Bad Batch, original Clone Wars, not my thing. I've become more and more the Bad Batch arc in Ahsoka or Clone Wars season 7. And when real Bad Batch season 1 dropped, I was hooked from the beginning. The first 2 seasons, I've loved every bit of it. We wrapped up last year dropping Mount Tantus, which as a, original, EU universe person, like that name has meaning. Like we're going to get some episodes that deal with cloning and Mount Tantus. And what does that mean? So it's tying those threads together. And I think dropping little, morsels and tidbits for some of us older Star Wars fans that still connect to it. So I'm just honestly excited it's back. I'm ready for more weekly Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I mean, it has been quiet, really quiet. And I honestly, I kind of feel like it's a good thing. I think it's good that there's been so much space between our last Star Wars. Ahsoka ended, when was that? September, I think it was, or October? I don't recall. I think it was October. And it has felt long, which is hilarious because for you and I, 3 years was the norm between Star
Hmm.
Wars. But I will say one of the things that I'm really excited about is because, and we've said it on the show 100 times, one of the great things about the Disney era of Star Wars is all the entry points, all the different doorways for people to become fans and to watch things. And Bad Batch has become my son's favorite Star Wars. He loved Clone
Hmm.
Wars, but when I told him Ahsoka was coming, he was excited about that. When I told him, about other things that are on the horizon, he was excited. But when I told him, Jack, this morning the Bad Batch trailer dropped, he was excited. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm excited because not only to your point, Joe, we're going to get weekly Star Wars once again. Me and my 11-year-old boy, we get to hang out and watch Star Wars together. So I'm
Yeah,
super
you
excited
can't beat
about
that.
that.
And I think it's also cool too. And I've said this, certainly we did some weekly shows during Bad Batch season 2, talking like the art that goes into these shows. I appreciate more and more the artistry of these animators and these creators that make these animated shows. It's beautiful. And the
Yeah.
music, like it's such a completed, like it's a great art to enjoy. So even if it isn't my favorite topic, I'm still here for it because they're giving us, we said we get this cornucopia of Star Wars goodness that just keeps getting dumped in our lap. And this show is no exception. I love the storytelling, the family aspect of it. I'm even wearing my Dad Bat shirt tonight for that very reason. It just, yes, let's go. Let's bring on Let's drop it tomorrow. Let's start watching.
Well, before we let that headline go, I got to ask you, what do you think? Did Tech survive or not? What are your thoughts?
I don't think Tech survived. I think that we have to have some finale somewhere, some finality somewhere, and there's room for that story to move and it to affect the characters and not just bring him back. Chewie showing up 20 minutes later in the ship that didn't blow up.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on record saying he survived. I don't want him to.
Okay,
I mean, I want him to, but I'm going to say he didn't. He did. So, all right, Nick,
you're
what
an
else do we
optimist.
have?
It
And
totally
by the way,
worked.
if you're joining us and hanging out, we will have our good friend Kyle Katarn joining us after the news. So hang out with us, put your comments in, and Kyle will be with us shortly. But Nick, what's our next story?
Well, Variety caught up recently with Daisy Ridley, Rey Skywalker herself, as she is continuing to promote her new film, Sometimes I Think About Dying. And they did ask her a few questions about the upcoming Rey movie because, of course, it's Star Wars. It's Daisy Ridley. You're going to ask those questions. They had already asked kind of what she felt about Charmin Obaid-Chinoy as the first female Star Wars filmmaker. Will that have an impact? And I love what Daisy Ridley said. She said, quote, "The short answer is, I don't know. I'm excited to do the job, but not because Charmin is a woman. Her idea for a story is cool as shit," end quote, as we said at the top of the show. The other thing that was interesting is she dropped another little tidbit. She was also asked about the prospect of Oscar Isaac, John Boyega returning, and she said, "You know what? I don't know." She said, "I don't know who's going to be in the movie. There's no release date yet. There's not a title. Like, it's in early development. She knows the big notes of the story, but we don't know who's going to be in it yet. There's still room for Finn and Poe to show up." I love that she said that her decision to join this movie was story dependent. She said if the story wasn't good, she would have been content to say, "Hey, try me again in 5 years. Let's see what we got." Of all the things we've heard, there's been a lot of controversy the last couple of weeks, Pete, surrounding this movie. What do you want to see most in this Rey movie? You're muted, buddy.
Muted. How did that happen? Oh my gosh! All right,
Amateur.
amateur.
That's okay. What do you want
What
to
I
see in
want,
this Rey movie?
what I want to see, I want to see Charmin Chinoy make men uncomfortable. No, I'm totally kidding. I want to see Star Wars back in the theaters. I want to see a good story, and I think, again, I love the point that you made that Daisy was very conscious to say that she's excited about the story. She's also said recently that it's taking Star Wars in a direction that it hasn't gone before, which is really cool. But honestly, I think I'm just excited to be back in a movie theater sometime soon, seeing a Star Wars movie. And honestly, we talk a lot about the prequel kids who and I call them kids because they grew up with the prequels. They have their Star Wars, and honestly, there is a generation of sequel kids, and unfortunately they don't get the attention they deserve because they're mostly very young, and they don't have the masses yet. But a Daisy Ridley Rey Skywalker movie is going to ring the right bells with them, so I'm excited about it from that perspective. What about you, Nick? What are you looking for?
I think that's a really good point, and I want to touch on that just one more minute, which is all of Star Wars is generational. Our generation that started with Star Wars is at different places than it is now. This sequel trilogy generation, when those movies came out, are older now. They're,
Yep.
high school, college, the ones that were kids when they saw it, like when we saw the original trilogy. So it's going to hit differently. And that's going to continue to be a hallmark of Star Wars for as long as they make that, is we're going to see these revolving doors. And it related to me about baseball announced the Hall of Fame inductions, who was going to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame this year. And they finally said it's kind of a transitional point this year where a lot of the people that I grew up watching, they're all in the Hall of Fame. And now it's younger players that are going in because those eras are shifting. So I'm excited about the shift in eras. What do I want to see? I mean, I do want to see Poe and Finn in this movie. I want to see Finn getting some Jedi training. I want to see him, conflicted, struggling. I mean, he's been conflicted through everything he's been in, but a different kind of confliction, learning to be a Jedi, struggling with his role, in this new aspect. And certainly with Rey as a master, like there's a lot of good ground to tread. And, I'm going to be excited for all of it, but let's get some more Finn and Poe in there with Rey.
Yeah, I'm all for that, man. Let's see that for sure. And there's the bomb. All right, we're good. All right, so let's hit our next headline. There is another wave of Star Wars toys. It seems like, as what has become a bit of a tradition, Hasbro held their semi-annual Hasbro Pulse event. I'm not sure how often that is. I feel like it's like 2 or 3 times a year. And they revealed the next wave of Star Wars action figures. There are 3 big Black Series figures that were announced. Those are the 6-inch larger format ones. They were revealed, including Grand Admiral Thrawn, as seen in the Ahsoka series. It's the first Thrawn with the Mickelson look. A Phase 1 clone trooper. And my favorite of this, the rolling droids, the battle droids, also known as droidicas, as first seen in The Phantom Menace. In addition, there was a huge drop of vintage collection figures that included Captain Rex, various characters from The Mandalorian Season 3, X-Wing pilot Luke Skywalker, and a special 2-pack of Sabine Wren and Chopper that includes a couple of Lothcats. So that is awesome. These will be released sometime between now and spring of 24 and spring of 2025. I will say this, and I feel like I'm obligated to say it as somebody who's been a fan as long as we have, who've grown up with the Star Wars toys. It's disappointing that they're hitting so late, and I don't want to be that guy, but I do feel like the Star Wars toys hit so far after a series. I mean, if you're going to get I don't know the release dates of these off the top of my head, but if you're going to give me a Grand Admiral Thrawn in December of 2024, a year after the show's been on, it feels a little late to me, and I think that's why maybe the toy sales aren't what they used to be.
I agree with you, and I want to be positive about this. I love Star Wars. We love Star Wars merchandise and toys, and as you can see by our backgrounds, we are susceptible to all the good marketing that goes into all of those things. But I think that there's an issue here, and it almost seems like, and I don't know, the issue I think is that Star Wars toys have become for adults. Star Wars toys aren't for kids anymore. And so what happens is, if Jack is really excited about Ahsoka figures or Bad Batch figures or whatever it is, they're not going to be out for another year. So he's going to lose interest. It's not going to be there. They're playing the long game, going, the adults that love this crap and have money, they'll still buy it a year from now, or they'll pre-order it now, forget they pre-ordered it, and then it'll show up at their house one day.
Target will cancel the order.
Yeah, or the order will get canceled. And so I feel like the toy strategies are not as kid-centric. They're not as toyetic, to borrow the word from Hasbro from back in the 70s and 80s. And I think that's where it kind of breaks down, because I look at some of these things and I go, yeah, that's cool, but I don't need that. Like, I'll enjoy that in your collection. If you want to buy it, show it to me. But if my kids were really excited that there was a new Baby Yoda toy and they couldn't get it for a year, because we can order it, but it's not going to be here. Kids, that's too much. It doesn't work.
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, kids have that very short attention span, and they want to watch the show and then go play with it. And it is interesting to see that. I mean, I think, look, they from Mandalorian, and it paid off. People were willing to wait because he was so damn cute. but are they willing to wait for, Captain Enoch from
Right.
from
Yeah.
Ahsoka in 6-inch form? I think the collectors will, the people who have them lining their shelves, and if that's what you collect, like everybody collects different things, so they're going to hit those collectors. But I think unfortunately it may lead to more in the bargain bin.
Well, and we even have it from our friend Greg right here in the chat. The Thrawn figure is slated to be out January 1st of 2025. That's a year from now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
we could have Ahsoka season 2 before that Thrawn figure comes out.
I was going to say, we might
like,
be ready for the movie that he's going to be in.
Yeah, it's so it misses its connecting point somewhere along the way. I think we've gotten off track, and of course the money and the resources are with older fans and adults who can now make bad decisions and buy toys. But Star Wars is built on kids and imagination, and what we all did as kids, which was play with our Star Wars toys.
Absolutely. Well, keep hanging out with us. We have one more headline, and then we have our special guest coming up, Kyle Katarn. But before we get to that, we have one more headline.
Absolutely. Fandom Menace this week kind of hit a little bit of the mainstream media. Ordinarily, a well-known Star Wars YouTuber, this one in particular, would not make our weekly news shows. But the bad take that he had recently gained the attention not only of Rolling Stone magazine, but NBC News. And so when that happens, last Saturday, Rolling Stone ran an article that outlined popular YouTuber Nyatos Dadbay, better known as Star Wars Theories, recent interview with a pop psychologist, Sadia Khan, in which she said, quote, "Women don't even like Star Wars," end quote. So when Star Wars Theory initially posted this interview, he said, quote, "I loved her response. Share or repost if you agree," end quote. Well, the article in Rolling Stone and on NBC News highlighted outcry from women in the fandom, understandably so, but also brought attention to this darker side of the fandom. Pete, we're aware of this person. We're aware of people like this who have done these kinds of things in this fandom for many years. Social media has certainly not helped that any. It's one thing when we see it in our social media, in our circles as Star Wars fans, but when it hits national news, Rolling Stone's one thing, NBC News is another thing. It becomes a different deal. So why is this more important than some of the usual, kind of Fandom Menace nonsense that we are used to seeing?
Well, you bring up a really interesting observation, and that is a lot of this sort of fandom menace kind of stuff, and that's such a broad description to use, but it usually ends up staying in social media, right? There'll be a Twitter eruption, there'll be a social media eruption, there'll be some videos made, but this now has hit the mainstream, and it's gatekeeping at a new level, right? And I always think back to, and Nick, you and I have talked about this. I remember before my dad and I went to Star Wars Celebration, and out of nowhere he said, "Hey, what is this that they're recasting The Mandalorian?" I said, "Where did you hear that?" And he said, "Oh, Mike Zero." And the problem is you're getting these clickbait sites, these sites that are making money from building up the gatekeeping to new levels, which are infiltrating the regular fandom. Now, that on its own is a problem. And people will say, "Well, Pete, you have a problem with him making money. You're jealous because your show and your channels don't do as well." I'm not jealous. I'm disappointed. And I'm disturbed by the fact that gatekeeping at this level has now evolved from look, here's the story with Star Wars Theory. He created $100,000 fan film. Disney Music stopped him from monetizing this film. Since then, he's had a vendetta against Star Wars, Lucasfilm, and Disney era content. It's one thing to gatekeep against people who like the Disney era of Star Wars. It's a completely different thing to gatekeep against women, which he has now said are opportunists when it comes to becoming Star Wars fans. He has now had a pop psychologist on to prove a point that women don't like Star Wars. And the problem for me is you have people who rely on fandom, whether male, female, whatever wherever they come from, whatever their walk of life, they rely on this fandom. And this guy has 3.3 million followers who go out in droves and now start to listen to this mindset of Star Wars isn't for women and attack women online. And I wish I was saying I was making that up, but I have friends who've shown me things that they have received as a result of this. And it's ugly. And what sucks is that Rolling Stone focused on him instead of giving an opportunity to write great stories about great female fans.
Right. Yeah, it's just disappointing. And like you said, this is somebody who's got 3 million subscribers on a YouTube channel. He's making money off of this. It doesn't matter what he says, it makes money. And it's an opportunity where it could be a platform for inclusion and positivity and fandom and the thing that we all love, which is freaking Star Wars. It's a big, fake, dumb space show. But instead, it empowers these certain people on the other side of the coin of somebody like your dad who doesn't, understand the source isn't good and it's not accurate news or whatever. It's a chance for somebody to parrot the same thing he said out into their little structure. It becomes, and they told two friends and they told two friends and so on and so on. And then it spreads. And like you said, our friends in our social media spaces and our content creators are being bombarded with messages telling them they're fake fans and much more horrible and ugly things than that. So it's very unfortunate that somebody with that kind of reach, this is what's happening with it.
Yeah. And as you know, I could go on for hours about it, but hey, we have a great guest waiting to join us, and I'm sure we'll touch on this topic a bit with Kyle. But that's it for the news this week. We will be back in just a minute with more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night hangout for all things Star Wars. We see you in the chat. We're watching you. We're catching your comments. We're going to get to them a little bit later. And if you're hanging out with us for the first time tonight, thank you so much for joining us. And make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Those little thumbs ups actually really help us a lot. So if you're just hanging out watching, even if you're not liking it, just hit the thumbs up. It's easy. It's not a lot of effort. It's the minimal effort. And that's, I'm all about minimal effort in most cases. However, tonight we are really excited because we have a fantastic guest coming in to join us. If you're on social media, if you're on YouTube, you've seen this guy. And actually, if you've played Star Wars video games back in the 90s, you know the name. It is our friend Kyle Katarn. We're going to bring him in for this section of Force Connect. Kyle Katarn, how are you, my friend?
Hello there. Thanks for having me on the show. Nice to be here.
It's nice to see. It's nice to see that somebody who's got more and better helmets than I do on screen with me.
I think we got a lot of the same helmets. Other than your shoulder there.
Yeah, other than that really cool custom-made Mando helmet you got back there. But so Kyle, for the people who don't know you, I'm excited to have a fellow shill online with me, but tell us a little bit about yourself and what your social media Star Wars presence is all about.
Yeah, of course. So hello there. I'm Kyle Katarn. I'm a Star Wars fan making my way in the universe, and I do have a Star Wars YouTube channel where I cover all kinds of reaction-based content, including obviously the Disney Plus shows that are coming out. But during the off seasons, I also react to and review a bunch of Star Wars fan films made by fellow fans, and try to give them signal boosts where I can. And I find that it's a very, very cool way to get to know how other people are interacting with the Star Wars universe. And if you've never watched a Star Wars fan film, I really recommend you check them out, because in this day and age with technology being the way it is, like they're pretty damn good looking. Like it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, man. Yeah. That's my primary channel. I am very, very proud of it. And then I do have a second secret YouTube channel. We keep it in the basement, chained to the radiator type deal. It's called Grizzled Wizard. Yeah. And that's also reactions, but it's for everything that's non-Star Wars related. Like right now, I'm watching The Legend of Korra over there for the very first time.
Cool.
Legend of Vox Machina, things like that. And then I'm also doing horror movie reactions full-length
Really?
movies for the first time. Yeah, I'm trying to break into that. Because, you know, Star Wars is great, but there's so much else out there too. So I have a second channel that's kind of just sitting there collecting the random things that I upload there.
I'm going to be DMing you now about Vox Machina, because I think that's one of my favorite things I've seen. That's just a little bit under the radar, but
I'm really enjoying it. I'm just starting season 2.
Yeah,
like this week. So
all right, I'll wait till you get through that, and then I'll bug you about it.
He'll hit you with more after that.
Yeah, Star Wars YouTuber is the main thing. I also do some silly skits on Twitter every once in a while, and I'm also the union rep for Disney Shows of America. So
well, congratulations.
So that's where my dues go. Now I get it. Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I thought they just paid me,
Love it.
but I got to pay them.
Yeah, if your shield checks are late, just talk to me. I'll straighten it out for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic.
Good. Now I know who to complain to.
Doors open.
Kyle, we are, as we said, glad that you're here. I want to talk a little bit. You mentioned it talking about fan films. And you mentioned it too, talking about Grizzle Wizard, like Star Wars fandom in particular, like fandoms in general. There are so many fandoms, whether it's Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, you name it, there's a fandom for everything. I live close enough to Atlanta that I go to Dragon Con, and I've told people, I describe it, I say, if there's something that someone likes, it's at Dragon Con. It's The Office, it's Super Mario Brothers, like you name it, it's there. But Star Wars is its own kind of special fandom, and it lends itself, I think, to several things. You mentioned fan films. I remember going back to being in college and watching Troops when Troops came out. It's one of my favorite Star Wars things still to this day.
97, that one.
Yeah, 97 exactly. That was?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sorry to call you out.
That's okay. I was in college, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, Troops, fan films, but cosplay. At this point, podcasting and content creation, and there's so many of us out doing reactions, watching shows, getting together with our friends, creating these spaces. What do you think it is in particular about Star Wars that is so immersive for fans to find a way to get involved?
Gosh, this is actually something that I've thought a lot about, because obviously it's had such a strong hold on me for most of my life. Like, what is it about Star Wars indeed? And for me, I think what it is the fact that it is able to feel simultaneously so alien and unique and yet accessible. Like there's something about it where at least for myself personally, I can really mentally transport myself into the universe as I'm watching Star Wars in a way that I don't really feel like I can do that with Lord of the Rings. Sure, I could do that with what have you, but it's effortless with Star Wars. You just fall right into it. And it's always been that way. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I think escapism is really the name of the game. And the fact that Star Wars plays so heavily on all of the archetypes of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like that, those archetypes are established for a reason, because they resonate so deeply with everybody, And so it's so easy to have any one of those characters like really strike a chord with you on like a very deep level. And I think that's what keeps bringing everybody back to Star Wars. Not that that's really unique to Star Wars. Like, I feel like that is true to some extent of most big franchises. But to Star Wars, it's just like to the nth degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I want to drill down on part of what you said, which is, I don't know. I haven't watched a single Marvel movie where I looked at Robert Downey Jr. and I was like, I could do that. I've never, Batman and went, I could be him. But I watched Star Wars I was born in 78. Like, I watched Star Wars as a kid growing up, watching Han Solo going, I could totally be Han Solo. He doesn't have it all together. He's, flying by the seat of his pants. He's charming. He's whatever. Like, that felt real.
Exactly.
The dumbest thing I can say that, clip this out later, Pete, and, use it against me online. The only other thing I've ever watched like that was James Bond. Growing up watching James Bond, I was like, this is a dude, and like, he's smooth and he gets away with stuff. And in the newer Bonds, like with Daniel Craig throwing the gun at the guy in Casino Royale, like, there was that similar moment. And that's a guy thing, I think, to a degree. Like, you watch a movie and go, yeah, I could totally do that. But I don't watch Lord of the Rings going,
about it, for sure.
Yeah, I don't watch Lord of the Rings going, yeah, I'm totally going to ride a horse and shoot bows and arrows and sling a sword at someone. But something about Star Wars and those, like you said, those tropes, those Joseph Campbell-like connecting points is something that I looked at and went, I can see myself in this story more than a million other things that I've watched.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, well, but the thing that, like, I think it's I think some of it also has to do with the collectibles, and I am and maybe I'm just completely in just the Star Wars world, right? Because obviously that's my main focus. But like, there's so much of it, and George was brilliant to keep. I mean, for those of us who are I was 7 when I saw Star Wars in 1977. Um, like my way to relive Star Wars was through the action figures and the toys and things. And now it's the helmets and whatnot. Do you think that drives it, the accessibility of the cosplay? I mean, again, you are into a broader range of fandom, I think, but is Star Wars in its own sort of category from that perspective, do you think?
I think it is. I don't know by the statistics if it is in fact the most heavily merchandised franchise out there, but it's got to be on that short list for sure.
Yeah, right.
And it always has been.
Mhm.
I think. I mean, for starters, like one of the reasons I chose to start a Star Wars YouTube channel was a chance to show off that collection.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's a really good point, and it brings up something psychological to where we are invested in the next chapter of the story, not just because we enjoyed the previous installment, but because we just spent like $45 on like a 12-inch action figure of the dude from the trailer. So it better be good because we're like financially invested as well as just emotionally invested in this thing.
Right. Well, I mean, remember the conversation.
I bought 3 Constable Zuvios. I'm after the Force Awakens trailer. All right. I got burned.
You had high hopes for that guy.
But I mean, do you remember the online conversation after the Razor Crest was blown up in Mando season 2? People were because they had just released the Hasbro Pulse, and one of my favorite stories of all time from doing Around the Galaxy was when I had Hal Hickel on the show. When I interviewed him, I had the Razor Crest Lego set behind me, and I was talking about how much I love the Razor Crest. And literally within 24 hours, I watched it get destroyed, and he couldn't say a word to me the whole time. So,
and if I can chime in just on that same point about the accessibility of the stuff, like as a kid, I had my action figures. I had the things that I played with in the early 80s. But there is nothing I wanted more in my life growing up than was a original OT Stormtrooper helmet. All through college, right? all through everything.
Same.
And now I reach a point in the mid 2000s where, thanks to Hasbro and the Black Series over here over my shoulder, like it was $130. It wasn't even like an Anovos or something fancy, which those are awesome, but it became accessible. And so now, like the Biker Scout helmet, that's the number 2 on my list. It's out there. It just hasn't made it to me yet. But like, shut up, Pete. I don't want to hear about it. But that accessibility of those things, I think really is a key important part of it, whether it's lightsabers, cosplay. That's another thing. I know you've done some
was about
cosplay
to bring
stuff.
Cosplay up. You said earlier as part of the fandom community. Think about 3D printing. And, for those of us that were in the fandom before 3D printing was commonplace, think about what that's done for cosplay.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy what people are walking around wearing at cons these days. So
I mean, we were all at Celebration in Anaheim, and just to see not only the like traditional 501st, approved, screen accurate, all that stuff, but like the R5D4 that was the AAA or the AARP, R5D4 with the old guy in the walker, like the creative things, like all of that stuff. Like there's so much in there, and literally you go, I see myself in this. This is the thing I want to do. And that's what is so beautiful about it, is because I think also, Pete, the point you made earlier is when we go to Celebration, all this gatekeeping, all this nonsense that we see and talk about online, that's not at Celebration. There's not a circle of people standing out in front of the building going, if you don't like Star Wars, you're a girl, you can't come in. If you don't like this, you're not welcome here. Like, it's just fun and people loving something, which is what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and Nick, you brought up fandom, and it's such an important, and it's really a personal thing to people. And as we touched on in the news, and I want to get, because I know, look, we joked a little bit about it, but it's true. Both Kyle and I have been called out by some of the dumbest people online, who have nothing better to do than to call people who actually enjoy something a shill, which I still don't understand the logic there. But that being said,
I would like to say I quite enjoy that. I would like to shout out to Melvin for the 3rd bathroom in my new house.
But gatekeeping has always been a part of fandom, but people have now found a way to monetize it, and it's a real, to me, it's becoming a bigger issue, especially in light of what we just mentioned in the news, with it being covered by some of the major outlets. How do you respond to that, and how do you manage that?
Well, first of all, let's say yes, it's absolutely accurate. It is a problem, especially when clickbait headline-based channels are getting monetized.
Right.
I don't feel like that's necessarily a stone I am qualified to throw, as I make no secret of the fact that I also make a living of being a Star Wars fan. Like
Yeah.
all my stuff's monetized too. Like it's a free market. I respect someone's right to have whatever business model, however unethical it may be. That's their right here. However, why do they get to have all the fun, right? Why are they the only ones monetizing this? There is absolutely like a psychological draw to negative attention, and a lot of these clickbait headlines are suggesting at deeper issues that really are what people want to talk about.
Right.
So it's riling, it's playing on tensions, and it's riling things up, and that is, I would call it unethical. It's definitely manipulation. But as a fellow monetized Star Wars content creator, I wouldn't necessarily decry the whole business model.
Sure. Well, I don't disagree with that, because yes, we
this is a monetized podcast, right?
Well, yeah, we sell shirts. We
Sure.
so we're
low,
making
low
money
level, but it's still there. And
right. But
ahead,
that being said, I think it's no problem. I think it's the way that it's being, to your point, it becomes the ethical and moral question, and what is it right, and what feels right and what doesn't feel right about it.
You're exerting influence at the end of the day, and with that, there's responsibility.
I was gonna say, so does it get a little bit Ben Parker in, with great power comes great responsibility? Like, if you have 3 million subscribers, or if we have 3 million subscribers, like, we can do some cool stuff with that is inclusive and brings people in and spreads this thing that we all freaking love.
You could also do some damage.
Yeah. You can go the other way, and it's tough, and everybody and that's also a very dark side, light side, Jedi, and people choosing their paths. So it's a lot.
It's funny. Tipper Gore comes to mind. The Concerned Parents of America. Yep. I know you all remember this. Trying to hold to bring heavy metal musicians to task for the terrible lyrical content their children were being exposed to it. It's like, well, is that a parenting issue, or is that really on the onus on the musicians there to only come up with tasteful lyrics? It's the same sort of thing. Like, anyone can say anything they want on the internet. Sure. That's a pretty important,
kind of the hallmark of the internet.
Yeah.
There are kids out there being influenced by these creators, and they are parroting these messages. And at some point, there's a responsibility of a parent controlling what the child is looking at on the internet.
Right.
If we're talking about like 11-year-olds here, that's a kid. Mm-hmm. That's a kid. Yeah. There should be parental advisory happening there. There are people being radicalized and taken down these loopholes, and they have no supervision, and they're just going ham on it. I will never fall on the side against a content creator in terms of sending a message. That is up to people controlling what, like, an adult can look at what an adult's going to look at, but we're talking about 3.3 million. A large amount of that are juveniles. All right.
Yep.
Like, it's a known fact that in the statistical breakdown, that's mostly children.
Yep.
And there needs to be some oversight about what your children are looking at on the internet and the messages they're being exposed to. And I don't think that any one creator can be saddled with that responsibility. Having said that, 3.3 million is fucking huge. And that you have influence. How much weight your words carry.
Yep.
And you can't be ignorant to that. Any ignorance to that has to be willful at that point.
That 100%. I like where you went with that. And I bring up an example. My son had his one of his other 11-year-old friends over, and I remember we were talking. He knows I'm a Star Wars fan, because how could you not? And he parroted my son's friend parroted the line. He said, "Did you know what we almost got if Disney didn't buy Star Wars? Maul would have been the bad guy in the sequels." That's the exact words he said, and I was like, an 11-year-old didn't make that up. An 11-year-old was probably watching shorts that his parents didn't want him to be watching, and he picked up on that. Well, and I'm to your point though, Kyle, there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's not like, but man, it's influencing those minds for sure.
Therein lies the problem. It's that influence. And the parent might know the kid is watching a Star Wars podcast, but it's Star Wars.
Right. How bad could it be?
There's a stigma that comes with Star Wars where, they're talking about childish laser stuff, not internalized misogyny. Like, it's a whole different.
Right.
Well, and that's where the sexism comes in. That's where, my position on the whole thing with what Star Wars Theory was involved in, with the Sadia Khan person, is its endorsement of a sexist perspective. And that's to your, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's the people who are not policing their children watching you shouldn't have to police your child watching a Star Wars YouTube channel.
Should never have gotten to this point in the first place, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Right.
What are we doing here?
Yep, exactly.
Well, and you hit that exactly on the head too with parental responsibility. I have 4 daughters, 15, 15, 11, and 7. We fight with my 7-year-old all the time because all she wants to do is watch YouTube. I'm like, you're 7. You don't need to be on YouTube, because it starts out with Cat and Sam or whatever the hell it is. And then all of a sudden she's clicked on the next video and the next video, and she's watching conspiracy theory video, whatever it is, like the algorithm and the way those things are designed. So there is.
You turn your back for 1 minute, she's calling you a cuck.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's totally it. I mean,
Star Wars is woke, Dad. Did you know that?
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Dad, I'm red-pilled and based now. Jesus.
So here's the question. As we talk about this, what is the best way to deal? You know, some people say the best way to deal with somebody like a Star Wars theory, a Melvin, a whoever it is, ignore it. Don't give them air. Don't give them oxygen for that fire.
Sure.
You know, I know you have addressed some of the stuff that goes on. Pete addresses some of the stuff goes on. I tend to be a little bit more in the, I don't give a shit about you, I'm moving on kind of.
Valid.
What do you feel personally? Like, how do we as fans do what we feel like is best for us as the fandom who want to enjoy Star Wars and be positive? Where do you fall on that?
When it comes to navigating the fandom community and trying to like tiptoe over the negative and the toxic discourse that's kind of way too pervasive right now, to the people that say just ignore it, I would say, yeah, you're right. For the average Joe in the fandom community, ignoring it is the best option. You know, that's the best way to snuff out a fire, is to deprive it of oxygen. However, having said that, the larger your platform becomes, the more your following increases, the louder your silence gets too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like if I am in a position to make a statement of my own to counter that narrative in some way, it would not be responsible of me to let that opportunity go by, since I have a reach of thousands of people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I said before, why should he be the only one to have any fun here, you know? If you're just some guy, you could say whatever you want. Who's going to be standing around to listen to you? It's when you have a larger following, though, it actually matters what you say, which is kind of the whole issue here, right? In the first place.
Yep.
And I'm on a smaller scale than that. You know, I don't have millions of followers, but I do have a couple tens of thousands. And I think that with that comes the obligation to, you know, I don't know, follow my own code of ethics. And I don't feel like sitting idly by while statements are made that, you know, that damage other people and their enjoyment of Star Wars. Star Wars is for everybody, and it should be.
Absolutely.
And going back to what you said about gatekeepers, I mean, it really boils back down to what we said about the toys. You know, people that gatekeep Star Wars are just having a tantrum watching someone else play with their Star Wars toys, you know, whether that's the filmmaker, whether that's the female Star Wars fan across the room, you know, like, no, you don't, that's not how Boba Fett makes a noise. You can only play with it this way. Like, that's kind of the mentality that people sort of never evolved out of. And I say never evolved out of because I'm referring to the adult Star Wars fans, but it's really hard to tell who is who, because there's plenty of people that are simply in that adolescent phase.
Right.
That's how they engage with the world around them. And on social media, their voices are just as loud as everybody else's.
Yep.
I don't have any ill will to the followers of this man. I think that his followers are all passionate Star Wars fans.
Sure.
A lot of them are rather misguided, and I would assume pretty young. I don't think they're bad people. I don't think necessarily the majority of them are sexist either. I just think that they are impressionable, and they are getting messages from potentially a pretty toxic source. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm passing judgment against them by being a fan of Star Wars theory. You know, you do you.
Yep.
I would only wish to introduce maybe a little bit of self-awareness to some of these people with the way that I see them interacting with other fellow fans on Twitter, saying the most dehumanizing things, saying the most like rude and vile and spiteful things just because someone has a different opinion about your fake Space Wizard movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way to take a step back and look at that and not feel like a total loser. Like, I just yelled at someone because of Star Wars. Like, good for you.
I
man.
showed them.
Good for you. Yeah. We'll add that to your resume of achievements. Like, come on. Like, there's just, I don't know, a little bit of self-awareness and a little bit of social etiquette would go such a long way towards repairing the massive rift that we currently have in the fandom, because it doesn't really matter to me what podcasts you subscribe to. You know, Something about Star Wars moves you. Something about Star Wars moves me. That's our common ground. That's where our conversation should be centered around, what we like about it, what's powerful about it.
Yeah.
I think we can get to a place where we can talk about what's critical about it, but that's so dangerous right now. It's such a weighted, loaded conversation. And I don't know, like it sounds so dramatic to say it, but I think the fandom community needs time to heal.
Yeah.
But that time hasn't even started yet. That process hasn't been initiated yet because we still have this wound, I guess, in the discourse of it all.
Yeah.
Kyle, I don't think we could have asked for anybody to put it any better than that. That was fantastic, very well thought out, and appreciate your perspective and appreciate what you do for the fandom. Where can people keep up with you, watch you, follow you? What's your internet handles, as the kids say?
My ats,
your ats.
What are your ats,
if you will?
Do you even at, bro?
I am Kyle Katarn, wherever Kyle Katarn is sold, except for on Twitter, where the L is a 1 because some bastard got Kyle Katarn before me. And then on Twitch, it is Kyle Katarn official, again with an L for a 1. And then the Patreon is just Kyle Katarn channel. One of these days, I'm going to go through and pick a new spelling and have everything be the same. But if you find my Twitter, which is at KY1E Katarn, there's a Linktree link with all of my good stuff on there. So
fantastic. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being a great fan and a great voice in the fandom when it needs it the most.
Thanks for having me. This has been a fun conversation.
Awesome. If you're not checking out Kyle, you should be. Go do that when you're done watching this. Go check out Kyle. And Kyle, thank you. We will have you back again soon, I hope.
Wikipedia just complimented my beard. My night is over. I'm just calling it there. It's perfect. Perfect.
Done it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, Kyle, thank you so much. And we will be right back with more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, hanging out on a Friday. It's not Friday. Feels like Friday. Dang it.
We're still used to we did Friday for 2 years.
We did Friday for 2 years. But you know what? I'm
it's
taking
new
the Thursday
Friday.
thing. Thursday's new Friday.
Hashtag new Friday.
Man, Kyle was fantastic. Loved his perspective. It's really, really great to hear that point of view. Before we get to your comments, which we've been watching, and we're gonna have some opinions on it. We'll bring in Lloyd in just a second. Just want to say, if you're hanging out with us for the first time, make sure to hit subscribe on that YouTube thingy there, and also make sure to share this. Tell somebody about it. If you enjoyed this conversation, if you enjoyed some of the people we talked to, enjoy what we have to say. As Kyle said, it's bring that positive Star Wars conversation to others who need it, would love to hear it, and would love to be a part of it. So please check that out and do some Jedi work and share some info. We are going to hit our intercepted transmissions.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted?
Hey there, Lloyd. How are you?
I'm good.
We didn't get a chance to share our. We all have ordered the Kyle Katarn.
Yes, we've all
ordered
ordered
lightsabers. We all have our.
Nick's got the ultimate
I got
limited
the double
edition.
bladed. That's right.
Yeah, I got the second limited
Mine
edition.
said
I got
Wegovy on the side. I don't know if that's weird because it's like a pharmaceutical thing or what, but
I got you
it.
beat because mine said Charmin. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, 69 out of 420. That's my placement.
Wow, man. Well, Lloyd, you've been watching the chat. You've been marking some of the comments. We want to address some of the people hanging out with us. But before we do, I think we got a couple voicemails. Let's hit those first.
I got you. So they're labeled funny, so I'm just gonna kind of hit them and see what you guys think.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Hey, yeah. I think you guys should, I don't know, read Star Wars comics. I know the other guy does. But how about Nick and Pete? How about you guys read some Star Wars comics? Thank you very much.
Take
Okay,
with that
that's
what you will.
that is clearly from our
Hey.
other host who's not with us tonight.
To quote a very famous movie, the call is coming from inside the house.
Damn.
I do have to say, and I want to say this, and I hope he's watching.
Scary movie.
I just started listening to Light of the Jedi, and it's fantastic. And I know now why everybody is so stressed out with everything New Republic or High Republic, because
Welcome to
Like
the
the-
world of despair.
oh my god, I got to love two characters immediately and
Ed.
gone.
Everything's on fire all the time.
Damn it!
Yeah.
Damn it!
Yeah.
All right. What's the next call? Yes, Chris, we are going to start eventually.
All right.
Hey, wait, before we hit the next call,
Yeah. Okay.
let's say this. Because Chris called in, because Chris mentioned comic books, let me use that as an opportunity to shamelessly plug the podcast interview that dropped just today with our friend Ethan Sachs, who has written Star Wars comics, Bounty Hunters. We had a fantastic conversation with Ethan. We talked about his work, his love of Star Wars. That's really where, around the galaxy, that's where we try to go. And then we also talked about his project Haunted Girl that he worked on with his daughter. Talks about mental health. There's so many great things in this conversation. It's wherever you get your podcast. There's some clips of it on the YouTube page. Please go check it out. Ethan Sachs is absolutely a treasure, certainly in our Star Wars fandom and certainly for Star Wars comics fans.
And one of those really super, super fun conversations that we got to have.
Yep.
So excited about that. So go check that out. All right. One more voicemail, and then we're going to take a look at the comments that you've all been sharing with us.
This one's from our good friend Matt.
Oh, good.
Hey, Pete, it's Matthew Madigan here in Enid. I was just sitting here. Hey, while I am mildly excited about the new season of Bad Batch, I enjoy it. It doesn't do it for me like live action. I just want a Star Wars movie in the theater. We need it. It's been a long time. It's not even the movie. It's getting to go to the theater and stand in line with the people and just talk Star Wars. I miss it so much. That's what we need. And here's an update for you. I ran into the guy who still stands by his guns and says it's Boba Fett and Yoda movie. His name is James. He told me that much. We chatted again, and so I tried to get a little more information out of him. And he's a prequel kid. He likes the prequels. And I asked him his favorite character, and he said, the guy with the long sword that's got the red face, looks like the devil. I said, you mean the lightsabers? So I'm assuming he's talking about Darth Maul. So we agree that Darth Maul is a badass, but that's all he would tell me. So hopefully I run into him again in the grocery store and I'll get a little more from him. But waiting for Thursday's show, man. It's cold here, so I don't know what it's like there. All right, enjoy your night. I'll be watching on Thursday. Take it easy, man. Bye.
I love
I don't
that.
understand. I love it though.
But here's what I love about that, and I think it's so important for all of us to remember. Everybody who's watching us, everybody who's on the screen here, everybody who we talk to on Twitter every day, most of the world is that guy that Matt from
Correct.
Enid talks to in the grocery
Most
store, who's
people are
like,
James in the grocery store.
exactly. They're like, nope, it's Yoda. Nope, that's just a silver Boba Fett. And you know what? That's awesome. So all this stuff, all the drama that we can involve ourselves in, just remember what really
It
does
makes
matter.
me think of, as an 80s kid, it makes me think of if all these people who grew up and think that Mandalorian is just silver Boba Fett is the same thing as those of us in the 80s when there was the episode of Knight Rider when Kit fell in the acid and he went white for an entire episode. We're like, it's just the same thing, but it's different. Like, it's not, but it's great because
Man, Knight
everybody
Rider
has the
Twitter is going to
opportunity.
blow you up.
Good, let's go. Knight Rider Twitter, come at me.
Lloyd,
But that's
what
also
did,
another reminder. Sorry, Pete.
no,
Another reminder. Matt's voicemail, Chris's voicemail, that could be you. Call 504-321-1501. Leave us a message. Who did you talk to in the grocery store? Whose thoughts did you have? What do you want to accost us about? Call us, leave us a message. You can do it live on the air.
yes, absolutely. Please do.
Just
Please
don't
do.
forget to listen to Light of the Republic before.
Lloyd, did we get any comments that in the chat that we want to address?
A lot.
Okay.
So bear with me. I'm going to try and shoot through them as fast as we can, but
Okay.
some of them are pretty good. Okay. So first one is from T.W. McKay, our good friend, Gatekeepers get attention. Let me actually pop that up there. Gatekeepers get attention in the MSM. What about the Keymasters? No love for them.
Those are the destroyer every
There
time.
you go. There you go.
Yep.
And by the way, Eric, I see in the chat you did send us a voicemail, and I appreciate it. We just didn't get to it this week, but it's on the docket. We'll keep sending them in because we're not gonna be able to get to every single one every week. So, Eric, I do appreciate the call. So, all right.
And the second one was from Matthew again. I like the animated Star Wars, but it's just not as cool as live action stuff, except for Rebels. It was awesome. I kind of see where he's coming from though, because that animation can be a bit jarring for some.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
a different. I didn't love the style when it's what took me. It's what kind of kept me away from honestly Clone Wars for a little bit, and boy, was that a mistake. But it's the stories. But it's a good. It's
Well, and
a
I
fair
think
point.
it ties back to his voicemail as well, which is we just want Star Wars in a movie theater. It's been a minute. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even about animation. Like, give me a Star Wars Rebels movie in the theater. I'm going. Like, put something in a big
Yep.
screen, and there's a different experience than at home at 5 a.m. on Disney Plus because I have to watch it before it gets spoiled.
Like, I gotta tell you,
Yep.
my only experience in recent years was going to the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And I'll never trade that experience because I've never seen the original in theaters, but I kind of see where he's coming. Like, we're overdue.
Yep.
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 All right, third one. Woodsy. I love how the animation has improved since the uncomfortable looking Clone Wars movie animation. Now, they did go hand in hand. That's why I highlighted them both.
Yep.
But they're not the same animation. Because I think this one was done by Tarantovsky, I think. The Clone Wars movie.
Well, there was the Clone. No, the Clone Wars movie was actually sort of the first step into.
Was it?
It was after the It was the Tartakovsky.
Tartakovsky,
Is that how you say it? Yeah, that was the first foray, and then the film came out, I think. So, but anyway, all right, let's keep plowing through. We got a ton.
Yeah. So these two kind of go hand in hand, but I always have to highlight Nubs when he's in here. So Brian
Nubs.
says, "I'm going to be really upset when Echo dies." And then and then Nub says, "At Brian, don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby."
Okay, so I asked Nick earlier. I'm gonna ask you, Lloyd. Is Tech really dead?
Yes,
I think we got a Lobot situation. His body is like, his mind is dead, but not his body.
All right.
Spider legs. Spider legs Tech.
Spider legs Tech.
No, since we didn't see his body, since we saw the death off camera.
Yes.
I don't
No one's ever
necessarily
really
think
done.
he's dead. I think he is that trooper they showed off in the trailer.
Yep, I think so too.
So,
all right. Wikipedia says technically at the moment. That's funny. Technically, I get it. Okay, give us three more.
Three more. Damn,
I know that's tough. I know we've got a billion in there.
Ash Rendar, and I thought this was actually kind of appropriate for the conversation at hand. I remember seeing these tweets from Ash. I had no idea it'd get this big when I called him out on misogyny, and I remember seeing that tweet for the first time, and it's out at maybe like 10-15 likes, and all of a sudden it just went straight through the roof.
Yep,
that's when everything kind of came together. So shout out to her for actually calling him out, though.
You know, Rolling Stone, if they did their research, and first of all, he claims that they never reached out to him, which is complete bullshit. These guys are Rolling Stone is not going to run a story and not contact him and then say that they did when they didn't.
Yeah.
So that's complete crap. They should have reached out to the Ash Rendars of the world. They should have reached out to the people who are at sort of ground zero of
Isabella
this
Amadalas
issue.
who are getting their accounts deleted over stupid shit.
Get in there and find out what it really means to the women fans who are getting abused as a result of this. Absolutely. Yep.
And they should have. All right, so we got 2 more. So Evil Anakin Skywalker says, "Oh my God, I love your chode saber."
I'm gonna put mine
Quality
up
is
on eBay.
impeccable.
I love Kyle, but I think if I put this on eBay, I can make out with that. So I'm gonna put that up there.
And then finally, Brian also says, so we need a new Star Wars D. Snyder.
That's
Twisted
amazing.
Sister and all that. Yeah, I think it'd be great. What do you mean? Our anthem should be "We're not going to take it," and then that's it. So I just thought those were kind of fun to kind of lighten the mood given the topic of
Absolutely.
Tonight, so.
Is there any
completely.
Is there maybe one that struck out that we didn't let you get to?
Let's see.
I have one if I can jump in.
Yeah.
Talking about the toys in the news and toys being, for kids and whatever adults. All Powerful Conqueror Nub said, I think that's why Lego is doing a great job with kids and collectors. They release a lot of sets before the movie, which we've seen because news stories were pretty regularly dropped with a tease of a character, a reveal, something that got out before it was supposed to because of a Lego set. Lego Star Wars has kind of done a lot of filling in gaps, whether it's with some of the animated stuff they've done, the video game, or putting these sets out and kind of filling also those gaps when there's shows out, a High Republic set drops, something else. So shout out to Nubs for recognizing, Lego kind of filling some of those toy gaps that aren't always working right.
Lego's in a sweet spot because they can release the UCS Star Destroyer, and that's for us, right? But then they'll take those minifigs and they'll put them in like a battle pack so that even kids can get their hands on them if they want. Yeah, they're in a sweet spot.
Well, and the funny thing
not
is,
so much.
I mean, honestly, I'm a huge fan of all the Lego sets. Like I'm a Lego set guy, and that's where what I enjoy. Doing the most, I think. So
like Hasbro has this weird thing where they're going to release an entire line of helmets and high-end action figures, but they don't release anything that's meant for like a 10-year-old.
Right.
Lego, on the other hand, they're like, you can have your collectible. That's $900, but we'll also sell like $20 little kits for the kids, And I think that's where both differ.
Yep.
I have both. I don't care.
Yeah, so. We can, and you can collect what you want and what you don't want, you don't want, which is awesome too. So, we are coming to the end of the show. Listen, guys, I'm looking at the YouTube. There's only 4 thumbs up, and there's more than 4 of you hanging out with us. So, just take a quick moment, hit that little thumbs up, and after you watch the show, tell somebody about it. We are trying to build this audience. We're having a great time every Thursday night hanging out with all of you, talking about the Star Wars news and bringing on our special guests. We have a full docket of guests over the next couple of weeks coming up. None of them you will want to miss. It's going to be a ton of fun. So make sure to follow us both here and also follow us on social media at ATGcast on Twitter and at the SSW Network everywhere else. Subscribe to this channel, hit the thumbs up, tell a friend. I think I've hit all the things over and over again.
Yep.
Nick,
we're all proud to be opportunists.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.